Welcome to the machine. In its current version. If you're here, you already know the system is rigged against you, and you're ready to change the game. In part 1, we covered the first 4 machine parts. In this presentation, we will pick right up with machine part number 5, legal and bureaucratic fog, regulatory capture, endless paperwork, licensing traps, compliance theater. These things function to make resistance exhausting and obedience easier, not by force, not by tanks in the street, but by paperwork, process, and procedural delay. When laws become unreadable, when policies contradict each other, when every action requires a form, a fee, and a waiting period, the average person doesn't fight. They fatigue. And fatigue is far more reliable than fear. Legal and bureaucratic fog shifts power away from ordinary people and into the hands of specialists who can afford to navigate it. It burns your time. It drains your focus. It punishes initiative. After enough wrong department, enough automated replies, enough compliance hoops, most people stop pushing. Not because they agree, because they're tired. And when exhaustion becomes normal, obedience feels like relief. Now we will name machine part number 6, resource funnels, centralized food systems, centralized energy, centralized supply chains, planned fragility. Of course, these things function to ensure your dependence, because independence breaks the machine. Resource funnels ensure dependence by narrowing the pathways to survival. When food, energy, housing, and credit are centralized, they become controllable. And when they're controllable, they become leverage. Local production fades. Ownership shifts upwards. The individual becomes a consumer in the pipeline rather than a producer inside of a community. The more essential the resource, the stronger the funnel. If your power can be cut off, your account frozen, your supply interrupted, your access denied, you adapt your behavior. Not because you're weak, because you need to live. That's how dependence scales. Survival routed through systems you don't control. And they've convinced you that is normal. Next, we step into machine part number 7. Psychological fragmenters. Trauma normalization. Time scarcity. Disconnection from nature. Loss of meaning and wholeness. These things function a bit more insidiously to fragment the self of individuals so that they forget who they really are. Psychological fragmentation works quietly. It doesn't need censorship, it needs distraction and division. It floods your nervous system with outrage, comparison, fear, and identity battles until your inner compass starts to spin. You begin to confuse reaction for conviction. You inherit beliefs faster than you examine them, and slowly you lose contact with your own grounded center. A fragmented mind is easier to manage than a coherent one. When you don't know who you are, you attach to whatever feels stabilizing in the moment. A tribe, a narrative, a movement, an enemy. And while you're busy defending that attachment, the architecture above you remains untouched. This brings us to the machine part number 8. Scapegoat generators. Immigrants. Poor people. Other groups. Foreign enemies. We see these things function to redirect your anger away from the system itself. Scapegoat generators manufacture enemies on demand. We see this happening all over right now. Every cycle needs a villain, someone visible, someone reachable, someone you can argue with online or blame at the dinner table. Because it's much easier to mobilize people against a face than against a structure. And while you're locked in moral combat with other citizens, the consolidation of power continues quietly. The anger feels justified, it feels righteous. But misdirected anger doesn't destabilize systems, it stabilizes them. It burns energy horizontally instead of vertically, and that's exactly the point. We are now at the last 2 steps. Machine part number 9. Tech without ethics. Tools built faster than wisdom. Power without accountability. Automation without humanity. These things are pure extraction function. They scale extraction while removing visible hands. How they hide in plain sight. Tech without ethics industrializes extraction. Your data becomes a product. Your attention becomes fuel. And the systems doing it are engineered to feel convenient, inevitable, even intelligent, while the incentives behind them remain buried. When power hides behind code, it becomes harder to confront. You can't argue with a server. You can't debate a recommendation engine. You can't see the boardroom through the interface. That's how the hand disappears, not by absence, but by abstraction. Abstraction is the modern camouflage of control. And finally, we have reached machine part number 10. Compliance narratives. You're seeing a lot of these right now. Be realistic. That's just how it is. You can't change the system. Focus on yourself. This is the brainwash. The thought-terminating dialogue that convinces you that the cage is normal and natural, Compliance narratives train you to defend the system that drains you. They turn scarcity into character building. They turn precarity into hustle culture. They turn surveillance into personalization. The abnormal becomes standard practice. And when something feels normal, it stops triggering alarm. You adapt, you cope, you rationalize. That's the razor edge when they have convinced you that obedience feels like common sense. This isn't random, it's architecture. Every mechanism we just named works together to exhaust, divide, extract, and normalize. If you feel scattered, tired, dependent, and constantly arguing sideways, that's not personal failure. That's design. And once you see the design, you stop mistaking it for fate. This concludes our presentation on naming the machine. We hope you enjoyed the content. Please like, share, and comment to support our channel. Welcome to the Grounded Ones.